without further ado, I'd just like to start with a show of hands. How many of you currently have companion animals or have lived with companion animals in the past? Almost everyone. Yeah. Let's see if this works. Oh, I need to turn it on. Okay, now it should work. Yes, there's mine. That's Damien and Leo, our boys. Both rescues, of course. Damien was rescued from a very horrible abuse situation, and Leo came from a Rottweiler rescue in DC. Yeah, I've had lots of companion animals throughout my life. And what do we observe when we live with companion animals or get to interact with companion animals? We know that they feel emotions like we do: fear, pain, joy, love, happiness. They value their lives, and they enjoy their lives, they enjoy living. We know that they feel pain, and we don't like to think of them suffering because as an empathetic species that we are, we don't like to see them in pain because we know how it feels to us. So that's me, way back, 7 years old. That's my best friend at the time, Jimmy, and my cat, Prince. So, yeah, I loved animals my whole life. I grew up rescuing animals. Like most children, I loved and related to animals very early on in life. I found Prince wandering around a creek when I was 5 years old, and I scooped him up and took him home. And my dad proceeded to tell me that we couldn't keep him because we already had a cat, and he took him to the pound. I can't believe that my dad would do that, because knowing him today, it's unbelievable. So I cried, and he drove back out to the pound, had to pay an adoption fee to bust him loose, and took Prince home. And needless to say, my dad never did that again with any other animal I brought home. And in fact, my dad is very fondly referred to as the cat man these days, because now in his semi-retirement, he spends his days off volunteering at the local shelter, socializing the cats. So anyway, my love for Prince inspired me to rescue many other animals through my life. Animals didn't judge. They were like my best friends. They weren't two-faced. They simply just loved you unconditionally. They didn't gossip. They didn't hurt your feelings. You know, they had individual personalities, and that was easy to see. But in all my great love for animals, I kind of failed to see the hypocrisy I was participating in. See, I was loving some, but I was eating, wearing, and otherwise using others. Until one day, in the early days of the internet, I was cruising around and I was very anti-fur, right? So I was looking at a fur video, and I happened to then go to a slaughterhouse footage video, and I saw cows being slaughtered. And to me, it was like somebody just pulled the shades open, and it was just darkness and a horrific world that I was living in that I couldn't imagine. See, I grew up in New Jersey, in rural part of New Jersey, and I'd seen cows grazing in the fields and got to pet some. I'd go to the 4-H fair and see the cows, and I really liked them. And I knew that we got milk from them. I knew that we got hamburgers from them, but it was very abstract to me. I didn't really make the connection until that day, and I saw it for my own eyes, and I couldn't pull that curtain back. I couldn't unknow what I knew. I was participating in their deaths, even though I wasn't holding the bolt gun to their head. I was responsible with my purchases. I was working so hard to save other animals who were just as sentient as cows, chickens, pigs, but paying to slaughter others. Didn't make any sense. So after the video, I did some more research, looked around, and I realized that I could not participate in it anymore. And I immediately went vegetarian, and then a few years later I went vegan. I think if I would have gotten information on veganism earlier, I would have gone vegan right away. But I was on my own. I didn't know one other vegan. I didn't even know any other vegetarians. I just knew I had to do it. I actually didn't meet other vegans until about 5 years later when I started to seek them out. And Erin was one of my first real-life vegan friends. And I got very involved in activism at that point. But when I was a lone vegan, it was pretty hard on me, which is why I believe in a program like this as being so helpful to those who are new to veganism. You don't need to be alone. If I would have had a vegan living program back in that day, it would have made such a world of difference to me. And I feel like everybody should have support in their transition. So, what is a vegan? Well, I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not just a diet. It's an ethical framework and a lifestyle. Your diet is part of it, of course. You have to eat. You eat vegan foods. But there's more to it than that. So Webster says it's a strict vegetarian who consumes no animal food or dairy products, also one who abstains from using animal products such as leather. But the original definition, and the one that still stands, was coined by Donald Watson and his wife Dorothy. Donald was the founder of the British Vegan Society, and in 1944, he wrote, "Veganism is a way of living that seeks to exclude as far as possible and practicable all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose." So a vegan is someone who, in addition to not eating animals, does not consume or wear other animal products and byproducts such as eggs, dairy, honey, leather, fur, silk, wool, feathers, cosmetics, and soaps derived from animals, and also does not participate in entertainment that involves animal exploitation. But veganism is more about what people choose than what they do not choose. Because vegans choose to demonstrate a respect for all life. People may choose a vegan lifestyle for different reasons, but most importantly, veganism is about animal rights and taking the interests of animals seriously and not viewing them as property. Why vegan? Why do people become vegan? There we go. So there are primarily four main reasons why people approach veganism. Animals help people and the planet. In my case, it was first and foremost for the animals, but there are also the three other reasons people are drawn to this lifestyle, or a combination of reasons, combination of a few of these or all of these. Show of hands, how many of you recycle? I think that's everyone. Because you're in good company. 90% of Americans recycle because they believe that the environment is an ethical value. How many people want to be as healthy as they can possibly be? Eat right, work out, get some sleep. Yeah. Good. You're in good company again. It's no surprise that most of us, majority of us, want to be as healthy as we can be and avoid diseases that we can avoid. How many of you believe there ought to be laws protecting animals against abuse? Yeah, everyone. Much. Good company again. The majority of Americans, according to Gallup polls, believe that as an ethical matter, there ought to be laws protecting animals from abuse. And I would bet that everyone here believes that where we can, we should try to alleviate global hunger, right? Yeah. Actually, most Americans agree about protecting the environment, protecting animals from abuse, and doing what we can to alleviate global hunger. And each and every one of these ethical considerations can be accomplished by going vegan. So you see, no one has to change anything that they currently believe to become vegan. Veganism is simply about living your values. If you believe it's wrong to harm animals unnecessarily, if you believe in taking your personal health seriously, if you believe in protecting the environment and eliminating world hunger, well, that's veganism in a nutshell. We'll start with the planet. So we're going to look at some of the environmental benefits of veganism. I'm not going to go into a lot because Dima Muratas will be presenting this in detail in session 3, and he's an expert in that particular area. And we'll just show a few main points. So I want to begin with a quote from World Watch Institute out of Washington, D.C. The livestock sector emerges as one of the top 2 or 3 most significant contributors to the most serious environmental problems at every scale, from local to global. The findings of this report suggest that it should be a major policy focus when dealing with problems of land degradation, climate change and air pollution, water shortage and water pollution, and loss of biodiversity. It's pretty major. And as you read this, I'll say, in 2006, the United Nations released a report that they aptly called Livestock's Long Shadow. It reported that livestock production is responsible for 18% of global greenhouse gas emissions, more than all global transportation combined. But I just want to clarify one point. The number here says 51%. Because in 2009, World Bank analysts reevaluated those numbers and found that the figure is actually 51% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and they attributed that to underestimates, overlooked numbers, and numbers assigned to the wrong sectors. Global hunger. Here's a quote from Dr. Richard Oppenlander, researcher and author of Comfortably Unaware. 82% of the world's starving children live in countries where food is fed to animals, which are then killed and eaten by wealthier individuals in developed countries like the US, UK, and in Europe. 1/4 of all grain produced by third world countries is now given to livestock in their own countries and elsewhere. The global hunger issue is quite simply the result of the bulk of corn and soy grown in the world is fed to farmed animals so that people can in turn eat those animals, while nearly 1 billion people on the planet are currently suffering from hunger and malnutrition. 50 million in our country alone are what is called food insecure. This means that they have no idea where their next meal is coming from. The hunger problem is not just a problem in third world countries, it's right in our own backyard. And then there's the issue with exploited factory farm and slaughterhouse workers. The animal agriculture industry exploits poor people, immigrants, and children. They work for unfair wages and are often penalized when they try to form unions. The work is disgusting and extremely dangerous, and being killed on the job is quite a high possibility. Killing animals is inherently dangerous work, but the fast pace, disgusting conditions, and lack of training make working at a slaughterhouse the most dangerous job in America, according to Human Rights Watch. This quote is from the book Slaughterhouse, the shocking story of greed, neglect, and inhumane treatment inside slaughterhouse work, inside the U.S. meat industry, and it comes from a former slaughterhouse worker. The worst thing, worse than the physical danger, is the emotional toll. If you work in the stick pit where the hogs are killed for any period of time, that lets you kill things but doesn't let you care. You might look a hog in the eye that's walking around in the blood pit with you and think, God, that really isn't a bad-looking animal. You may want to pet it. Pigs down on the kill floor have come up to nuzzle me like a puppy. 2 minutes later, I had to kill them. I can't care. You can see why no one dreams of growing up to be a slaughterhouse worker. Our health. I'm not going to talk too much about this either, since we have an expert in the field of nutrition coming next week, Christine Doherty, who is a registered dietitian. She's going to be talking extensively about vegan nutrition, so be sure to show up. But anyway, I'll just say all of our main diseases stem from meat, cheese, milk, and egg consumption. There are a lot of lies out there that meat is necessary for human survival, but it's actually what is killing us. If you look around the world at impoverished societies, they don't die from heart attacks. They die from lack of food, malnutrition, and dirty water. If you look at the wealthiest societies, like ours, what do they die from? Heart attacks, strokes, cancers, diabetes, all stemming from animal protein. cholesterol, saturated fats. And if you look at this China study, the world's largest dietary study ever, meat-eating societies have heart attacks and strokes better than 51% of the time, whereas in vegan societies, it's less than 5%. And this was a quote from the very conservative American Dietetic Association in 2009 position, and they wrote, appropriately planned vegetarian diets, including vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. Well-planned vegan diets are appropriate for individuals during all stages of the life cycle: pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, and adolescence, and for athletes. And this is from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Vegans enjoy a lower risk of death from heart disease, lower blood cholesterol levels, lower blood pressure, lower rates of hypertension and type 2 diabetes, and lower body mass indexes, as well as lower overall cancer rates. The animals. So lastly, I want to submit to you that while all these other benefits are great, the basis of veganism is recognizing the inherent value of animals as individual beings unto themselves. And worldwide, trillions of animals, these individual sentient beings, are slaughtered for food each year for our palate pleasure. And that doesn't count the animals that are exploited and killed for clothing, entertainment, cosmetics, household products, etc. The death toll. Let's talk numbers as you read this. In all the wars and genocides in our entire recorded human history, approximately 619 million humans were killed. We kill that same number of animals every 5 days. 56 billion land animals are killed globally every year. I make it clear that 56 billion number is land animals because that number does not include marine animals, fish, shrimp, crabs, lobsters, etc. Also, more than 3,000 animals die every second in slaughterhouses around the world. In America alone, we consume 1 million land animals per hour. And again, this number does not include aquatic animals. Their death counts are so vast that they have to be measured in tons. Let's meet these animals, some of these animals. Pigs. My favorite, pigs. This is Franklin. He lives at Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary in Poolesville, Maryland. So pigs like Franklin are highly intelligent, fully aware of their own existence. They enjoy their lives. They make friendships, just like we do. They could spend hours playing. They like to root around in the ground, lie in the sun, explore their surroundings. They take pleasure in living their lives and, like us, want to continue experiencing and enjoy their lives. Unfortunately, as you finish reading what's on the screen, I want to add that once her piglets are gone, the sow is impregnated again, and the cycle continues for 3 or 4 years before she is sent to slaughter. Piglets live in extremely crowded conditions, and to prevent stress-related cannibalism and tail biting, farmers often cut off their tails and break off the ends of their teeth without painkillers. Castrating without painkillers is also common. And for identification purposes, notches are cut out of their young animals' ears. Piglets are taken away from their mothers at 2 to 3 weeks. When they are about 5 months old, they are slaughtered. 5 months old. When we think of a dog at 5 months old, what do we think? Puppy. Right? They live about the same length of time as a dog, 15 years, about 15 years for a pig. They're babies. Chickens. This is Louie and Libby. They lived at Peaceful Prairie Sanctuary. Chickens like Libby and Louie are inquisitive and interesting. They're intelligent and very social, contrary to what their reputation is. They do not have small, tiny, dumb brains. They're very intelligent, very sociable, and they like to spend their days scratching for food, taking dust baths. They roost in trees. They actually do fly up into trees in the wild, and they like to lie in the sun. Here's their reality on farms here. These are laying hens in battery cages. So laying hens are crammed together in wire cages where they don't even have enough room to spread their wings. The birds have part of their sensitive beaks seared off with a hot blade so that they won't peck each other out of frustration. Can you imagine? I mean, it's like living in a little box stuffed with other people for your whole life, and you can't even turn around. Of course, you get aggravated with people next to you. You know. After their bodies are exhausted and their production drops, they're shipped off to slaughter. So just like the broiler chickens, egg-laying hens are also sent to slaughter. They don't escape it. Male chicks. Male chicks are useless to the industry because they don't lay eggs and are purposely killed within minutes of their birth. They're not the same kind of chickens that are used in the meat industry. They're much lighter and smaller, so the male chicks are basically just useless. They're just ground up. They either suffocate them or grind them up. And don't think that raising chickens in the backyard spares these male chicks, because these chicks come from the same hatcheries as commercial operations. And there's no way around male chicks being a byproduct of the egg industry. Broiler chickens. So chickens raised for their flesh spend their entire lives in filthy sheds with tens of thousands of other birds. They are bred and drugged to grow so large so quickly that their legs and organs can't keep up, making heart attacks, organ failure, and crippling leg deformities common. You can see that this poor individual can't even stand up. It's common because, think about it. What is advertised as being good for you? The white meat, right? The breast meat. So they genetically modify them to get enormous breasts so that they have a big amount of breast meat. And this is how these poor animals have to suffer for that. Chickens naturally live up to 10 years of age, but animals raised for food are often slaughtered at 3 weeks of age. Caged as well as free-range chickens are slaughtered by 14 weeks. Babies. So this is Opal. She's passed away, but she was my friend. She lived at Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary in Poolesville, Maryland. It's actually where we take our tour with our Baltimore program. So Opal escaped a slaughterhouse and literally ran for her life down a street and was saved by a nice person while desperately running for her life along a highway. She was one of the lucky ones. She was able to live her life out at the sanctuary. You would think that after her ordeal, she would be scared of humans. I wouldn't blame her if she was, but not Opal. She loved people. She used to greet the school buses at the sanctuary when the tour buses of kids would come in. She loved to be petted. She'd follow you around. She was just a wonderful being, and everyone loved her. She was truly an ambassador for her species, and she's missed by everyone who loved her. She's not unique. Turkeys are awesome. Unfortunately, this is what happens to them. To keep them from scratching and pecking each other to death, portions of their beaks are also taken off. Their toes, their snoods. Actually, if you go back, you can see Opal's beak is cut. And she was from a farm. She was from a slaughterhouse. You can see that. You can see on the right the young turkeys. Toes and beak have been seared off. So the numbers you're reading are hard to wrap my head around, especially knowing turkeys. But there they are. It's important to note that turkeys are usually slaughtered at between 12 to 26 weeks of age, and their natural lifespan is 10 to 12 years. Cows. That's my friend Norman. He passed away. He was a veal calf who got to live. He's full grown. You normally don't see full grown male Holstein cows. They come from the dairy industry. And the reason you don't see them is because they're sold off for veal after they're born. So Norman got to live out his life at Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary, and he grew to be over 6 foot tall. So standing up, he was like towering, gigantic. But he was a very gentle giant. So that just like humans, cows will only produce milk if they give birth. So forcible impregnation is commonplace and carried out again and again. Female cows born into the dairy industry may go on to be exploited for milk, but the unwanted males and excess females are either killed at birth or briefly raised for veal before being sent to slaughter. And really, I mean, let's talk about what dairy milk is. It's the breast fluid of a lactating bovine who just gave birth to a baby whose baby was taken away so that we could take her milk. We are the only species who drinks milk after infancy and drinks the milk of another species. I mean, if you think about drinking human breast milk, what's the thought? It's like a shudder, right? Disgusting. You never, gross. Why do we drink bovine breast milk? Why? It doesn't make sense. And think about, what this means to these cows, what they go through so that we can drink their baby's breast fluid. Something to think about. Again, you see these animals are slaughtered as babies. Dairy cows at about 4 years. So dairy cows are slaughtered after their milk production declines. They don't get to go off to pasture. So if you're vegetarian because you believe in animal rights, you should be vegan for the same reason. They go off to slaughter just like their beef-raised counterparts. But they suffer immensely before they're sent to slaughter after constant impregnation, having their babies taken away, being milk machines. It's a terrible, terrible life and a terrible ending. And I should say, you can read that the normal lifespan for a cow or bull is 15 to 25 years. So I added this lamb slide because I wanted to bring up a point also. It was just Easter not too long ago, and I couldn't stop hearing people talk about their Easter lamb that they were looking forward to. Very sad. Lambs are baby sheep, and they're slaughtered well before their natural lifespan. And I want to point out that if you've been paying attention, and I think I've said it a few times, to the ages of all these animals, they're all babies or mere adolescents when they're slaughtered, all of them. So if you wouldn't eat veal because they're it's a baby cow, you shouldn't eat any of them for the same reason. They're all slaughtered as babies or, adolescents. Pig 5 months old, chickens between 3 and 14 weeks, turkeys between 12 and 26 weeks, dairy cows 4 years, beef cattle 9 and 14 months, veal calves between birth and 16 weeks of age, lamb between 6 weeks and 5 months. And fish. So fish always get a secondary, second-class citizen status for some reason. And I think it's because they don't look like us. They're not cute and cuddly looking, and they're just different, right? They swim in the water, breathe with gills. But we know that they absolutely feel pain. Scientists who study pain are in complete agreement about that fish feel pain that's basically identical to the pain response system in mammals and birds. And they don't get nearly the sympathy of land animals because of their differences to us. But if what does it matter? If you look at us, we can't swim like a fish, we can't fly like a bird, we can't run like a cheetah. Different from us doesn't make it okay to exploit and kill others. And here's an aqua farm picture. So this is mostly where fish are coming from these days, these aqua farms. They're basically like factory farms for fish. I'll let you just read the slide. And if they don't come from aqua farms, they usually come from these gigantic nets that are put in the ocean and just kind of dredge the ocean floor and pick up everyone in their wake, right? So not only do they pick up the target fish, but non-target animals, which they call by-kill, including sharks, sea turtles, birds, seals, and whales, you know, along with the fish. So you're killing more than just these fish that are the target fish, many more. And I just want to quickly bring this up. Humane, which you're seeing this buzzword a lot these days. There's a lot of greenwashing going on. The humane myth was created for the need to fight against that. The humane myth means, in other words, the belief that animal product is labeled humane, free range, or natural means that the animals weren't exploited. Nothing could be further from the truth. So the animal agriculture industry has a long track record of misleading the public on everything from the health benefits of consuming their products to the living conditions and modes of death of the animals killed to make their products. And what they fail to tell us is that raising and killing animals for food unavoidably involves injustice. A life is taken to please our palate. There's no getting around that. The claims that the industry are making about their products don't address the confinement, social deprivation, mutilation, reproductive manipulation, or the indignity and premature death of the animals being exploited. Ask yourself, who do you love and who do you kill and why? I mean, really, why? There's no big difference, is there? Only our perception, and that's all. Maybe you live with dogs, love dogs, or cats, rabbits, but you never met a cow. Well, we're going to meet some in a couple of weeks when we go to the sanctuary, so you'll see for yourself. There is no big difference. So they're all living, breathing, sentient beings, just like our dogs and cats. All want to live free, all want to have their, live without harm, all have their own wants and needs, and universally the want and need to live. So being vegan is a matter of justice and nonviolence. It's about love, respect, and dignity of all beings. And I understand that we're all on a different path and all on a different journey in life, come from different backgrounds, cultures, religions, but there's one thing that we need to have in common with each other, and that's the genuine compassion and genuine peace for our fellow earthlings. As I mentioned earlier, I was not raised vegan, right? I ate milk, meat, cheese, eggs for a good part of my life. Needless to say, I understand a non-vegan lifestyle because it was my lifestyle. I didn't stop eating animals and their products because I didn't like the taste. I loved the taste. I stopped for ethics. I, again, came to the same realizations about what's happening to animals every single day of every year. And no matter how hard I thought it was for me to become vegan, I knew that it was much harder for the animals because I was not vegan. Donald Watson and his spouse Dorothy Morgan, who founded the Vegan Society in the UK in the 40s and coined the term vegan by taking the first 3 and last 2 letters of the word vegetarian to describe those making the logical extension from vegetarianism. In doing so, Watson wrote in an early Vegan Society newsletter, "We can see quite plainly that our present society is built on the exploitation of animals, just as past civilizations were built on the exploitation of slaves. And we believe the spiritual destiny of humanity is such that in time we will view with disgust the idea that we once fed on the products of animals' bodies." To this day, veganism continues to be the only way to resolve the contradiction of loving some and killing others. As I mentioned earlier, Gallup polls indicate that a majority of people believe that animals should not be harmed and killed unnecessarily, but most of those same people behave in ways that otherwise contradict that belief because they continue to consume and otherwise use animals. Being vegan is the only way to align your actions with your ethics. It was definitely the case for me. I realized that there were so many reasons why I should be vegan and not one good reason why I shouldn't. Our choices matter. Taking the lives of sentient beings, harming the environment, and contributing to global hunger cannot be trumped by our desire for convenience, tradition, or the mistaken belief that we must consume animals to be healthy. There is no good reason to love one and kill the other. Live vegan, help others to do so as well, and spread the word. It's the right thing to do, and simply put, our world and all of its inhabitants depend on it. Thanks for listening, and I applaud you for taking this first big step into a vegan life.